Hello, everyone, and welcome to another tournament review with PMTT. Tonight, I am joined by Clint. Clint, how are you going?
I'm pretty good, Henry. How are you this fine evening?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Clint attended the most recent Gauntlet event, so Gauntlet Round 3 of the 2024 series, and he did quite well. We've got him on tonight to talk about the award that he won. But this is the first time Clint has ever been on the channel. Clint, can you just give us kind of a quick crash course? What's your background in the hobby?
Okay, so I'm Clint. You may have heard of me from this long ago podcast slash gaming collective called Heralds of War. Used to run the AOS event at CanCon, have a podcast, uh, played a lot, but I've been wargaming for 20 something years now since old school Warhammer. Jumped onto AOS, went hard, obviously, with a podcast and big events and things like that. But I fell off a little bit in AOS 3. But fourth edition, back strong, tons of hobby mojo and things like that. And so um, tend to be more of a hobbyist than a hardcore gamer. I'll go to events mainly so I have a reason to do cool hobby projects, and but I do enjoy the game and like catching up with people and stuff like that. So
Yeah, very cool. Clint is definitely underselling all of that. I have heard him called the father of AOS in Australia, with really pushing the big events and really growing the scene to where it is today. So thank you for all your previous work in previous editions. But we're in a new edition now. We're in fourth. None of that
it
matters.
doesn't matter
It,
anymore.
yeah, yeah. We're re-racking, starting again from scratch. So you attended the most recent Gauntlet event,
Mm.
and you brought one of the current meta armies, Gloomspite Gits. They're doing really well. So obviously you purely designed your army to win it at any cost. What was in
Absolutely.
yeah? What was in your list? What did you actually take on the day?
Look, I had the meta choice there of Trug, the Troggoth King, six fell water trogs, and then lots of spiders because I missed the memo on what was actually good, and I had two big Skitterstrand Arachnox, 25 little spiders in various sort of units, and Scragrot. So yeah, super medalist. When really I just wanted to paint spiders and do a swampy deepwood gits army. So
Yeah,
that's
no,
what the choices were.
yeah, no. It's a very cool list. I was really excited to see Clint playing it on the table. The army has been done up beautifully, which might hint to the award that Clint went away with at the end of the tournament. But it was still a tournament, so he played 3 games. So your first game was against Scott and his Lumineth. How
Mm.
did that game go?
Oh, look, I haven't run into Lumineth in fourth yet. So I've played probably half a dozen games. So my experience against some of the armies isn't as good as I'd like. Um, Scott had, I think it was a slight variation on what he'd taken to Sydney the weekend before and done fairly well with. It had the the Dawn Riders and the Blade Wardens, like the Swordmaster dudes, and the new hotness, the Warcry unit that gets to just do all the things and move in the combat phase, and it's like, oh, cool. He's like explaining it all to me at the start, and I'm like, yep, I'm going to forget all of this. I'm just going to push my spiders around and have some fun.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I often say that Lumineth don't have rules; they just have guidelines. So
yeah, yeah,
anything that restricts your army, they play a little bit fast and loose with that. So
yeah.
um,
In Scott's words, he said the elf guy is still at GW. Like,
they haven't. They've probably fired probably 90% of the staff and like the turnover there. But that guy is still there,
that
still
guy's
hidden
still
away
there.
somewhere. So
Right, elf rules. Yeah.
yeah,
So um, it it was let's just put it this way: a fairly one-sided game. Scott's big thing was that he was scared of where my two skitter strands were going to come up from, so they can sort of be deployed off the table and then come in through what we've since dubbed the Spider Verse, and and pop in. So he was moving stuff around and checking the 9 inches. Okay, have I screened out Clint's big spiders? Because that's what he was really worried about, as opposed to my small units of spiders, which he was annihilating with shooting and uh, double tap combat and stuff like that. So it's quite one-sided in terms of how the game went, but it's still enjoyable. I like playing Scott. He's a cool guy. So yeah,
And at the end of the day, that's what you want. Like, I'd much prefer to get absolutely wrecked, but play someone who we can have a great game against, than
yeah,
absolutely wreck someone who I'm not enjoying the game with. So,
yeah. It was. I think the end score was 46-12 or something. Like it wasn't. It wasn't even close.
yeah,
Um, but that's okay. I learnt. I
yeah.
still got to push around spiders. Yeah, so I know what Lumineth does now. So
Well, that's it.
that,
Next game against them, you're going to be able to reverse that score. So,
no, I've only beat Scott once. We've played lots, and I've only ever beat him once. So
yep, yeah. So, off that, into round two was up against Michael and his Stormcast. How did that one go down?
yeah, so that was pretty cool. I've never played Michael before. There was actually lots of people at this event that I'd never even met, and Michael was one of those. So that was cool. I always enjoy meeting new people, and he went. Pretty much the first thing he said was, "My Stormcaster also on swampy bases, so we should go steal that table." We didn't, but it felt a little bit more themey that we were sort of fighting over a swamp. Um, he had the six raptors, some prosecutors. Like he had Vanguard Paladors as well, which I haven't
Mm,
seen on the table for a very long time. But he had his whole army was converted with what's probably a fairly common stormcasting is people convert the helmets, but these were sort of from like Dark Souls or something.
mm,
So they were very sort of gothic and dark, and and he'd converted some stuff up. So that was pretty cool. Um, it was quite a close game. I thought he had me on the ropes when he took out, I think, two of my spider units, but then I kept bringing up the skitter strands in his backlines to make him care about that. And Trug survived for most of the game along with the trolls. Um, Trolls did a fair bit of damage to his reclusions that he had in the list as well, which was they kind of spiked and it went badly for them. So I breathed a little easier, but then came down to the bottom of the fifth turn, and unfortunately I just didn't have enough. I think I had one lone spider and two trolls that I brought back through the shrine, um, with which to try and get a battle tactic
mm,
to win, like to kind of keep the game even. But weirdly enough, his raptors shot off that poor lone spider, and that left me one unit to try and do a battle tactic that I needed two for.
yep,
So yeah,
yeah.
it was super close. Like we were tied pretty much every turn until turn 5. So it was super close. Lots of cool moments with he had in I can never say her name right. Indastra.
Yndrasta?
Yeah, that one.
Yep,
Flinging spears at my big spiders, and yeah, 8 damage is it's a thing.
yep. She's there to
Yeah,
kill monsters, and you brought some monsters.
yeah. It's like, oh, well, 8 is a spider number, right? So I kind
Mm.
of deserved it, but it caught me off guard a little bit. But yeah, no, that was a really cool game.
Mm. No, it sounded like from watching it and kind of rolling around the room, it looked like you guys were both having a blast there. Like and like you said, a very even game. Like it was back and forth. Like at the start, I thought
Mm,
he had it, and then halfway through, I thought you had it, and then kind of like very much just going to and fro. So, But that's the games you want. They're the games you remember, like the really fun, close ones. So
Yeah, if I had my time again, I would have prioritized trying to get to those raptors sooner because that covering fire off them is just rough
yep, yeah,
against an army like the spiders that doesn't have a great save
mm,
and obviously has no wards. Fellwater Trogs have no wards, so I took the squishy Trogos as well. So like
yeah,
it was a bit rough.
yeah, yeah, and they definitely
Yeah.
get some work done.
Mm.
Yeah. So going into game three, you came up against Stormcast again. This time being piloted by Nathan. How did that one end up?
Look, Nathan and I played a game at a games day a little while ago as he was prepping for some events. Uh, Nathan's list is the two big Stormcast dragons, Krondus and Karazai, plus some obligatory raptors. Um, the Praetors being like a bodyguard for one of the dragons, and some other bits and pieces around that as well. So, um, yeah, those dragons are tough. Lots of armor, and weirdly, spiders don't have a lot of rend. The little ones. So it's like weight of attacks, but they're not good attacks, and they have no rend. So
Yep,
it's yeah, if you get something through, it's a bit you sort of it's cause for celebration. I
yep,
suppose you could say it's like yeah, I got some mortals in.
mm,
Yeah, so I've played Nathan before. I kind of had an expectation of how the game was going to go. I hadn't played him with this list, but I'd played him with Squigs, who all like they're better than spiders. Let's not beat around the bush, but they're
yep,
also not the optimal kits
mm,
units. So I kind of knew that I was going to be pushing it uphill, and yeah, just bounced off, and you know he put the red dragon. I think it was Karazai. I don't remember
yep,
which way around they are.
yep,
The angry one. He put him into Trug and just went, well, you can have neg one attack, and I'll neg one another attack. And so, and then there's other debuffs happening. So when, you know, you really need those attacks to get, to be hitting well and to get through your 4 damage and stuff like that.
mm,
He just didn't have them. So
yep,
yeah, it was bouncing off a wall.
mm,
But like, I've known Nathan in the scene for ages, so it's always good to hang out and chat. And we had lists that were aimed at different things. Like his is like this is how I want to perform. This is the kind of thing I want to do. Whereas I went, I like spiders. Uh,
yep,
so it's just, but that's just how it was. So yeah, finished the day on 3 losses, one very close one, and then 2 thrashings. So
yep, yeah.
um,
But you still walked away with an award, a very hotly contested award, because there was an absolutely beautiful Sylvaneth army there that almost took it out. But for those who weren't there, I lent my Sylvaneth army to one of the players who wanted to borrow it. So it actually did get a couple of best painted votes, which I'm pretty sure were people just trying to suck up to the TO. But Clint Spiders resoundingly won best painted. He had double the amount of votes of about the next 3 or 4 because they were very, very close after Clint's. But his Spiders wholeheartedly won that award, and I 100% agree with that decision. They are an absolutely beautiful army. The orange is impeccable, and they just pop from across the room. So congratulations for taking that award home.
thank you.
And one of the reasons that I wanted to interview is because usually I try to interview the people that have done well on sports, because that's one of the biggest things I think in the hobby
Mm.
that is the hardest to improve. And it's like because you can always learn to get better at playing games. You can always learn. There's plenty of painting videos and tutorials out there. But sports is always the really difficult one. But because Clint won so resoundingly and perfectly timed, we've got 2 pictures up on the
Yeah.
at the moment. Um, because he won so resoundingly with the best painted, I wanted to get him on to talk about not the techniques of painting, but some of the choices and the decisions that go into it. So, what were some of the What was the thinking behind kind of the bright orange and the bright blue of your army?
So whenever I do a project, I try and pick a new color to do. So working because I had vampire counts and soul blight, well, that turned into soul blight grave lords for years and years and years, and they were
Mm,
purple. And then I'll pick another project. Did a Squigs army earlier in the year, and they were yellow. And I thought, oh, and I've had an idea for sort of swamp gits for a
mm,
while. So the spiders and the forest goblins and things like that. So I knew I wanted sort of dark green, swampy bases. And okay, well, what stands out? What haven't I painted? I haven't painted lots of pink. Like I haven't painted an army that's pink, and I haven't painted an army that's orange. Mainly because orange is a terrible color generally when you're trying to paint it. And pink, I just haven't found the right project for yet. So
mm.
look, that's probably coming. Um, this is next project round, although I don't know how it'll fit with what I have in the back of my mind.
Yep.
But so yeah, orange was the choice, and orange spiders, like they're the kind of models that you can use orange on.
Mm.
Um, I don't know how bright orange Sylvaneth would work because that's not what color trees are. But they like it could work. But
Mm.
yeah, the color matched the theme, and we went from there. And obviously, the a good contrasting color to the bright orange is that bright blue.
Yep.
That really hot color and the really cold color. And then there's some others. I made some other color choices that sit in between there. The sort of um, quadratic scheme is sort of the orange, a bright green, a purple, and the blue. And so I was able to do everything in the army basically with those four colors as the main ones, but obviously in varying degrees. So um, the goblins are the bright green, and there's
Mm.
when there's cloth or features like that, that's where the purple comes in. So the underbellies of the spiders are a dark purple. The loincloths of the goblins are purple. I think the river troll that's holding a fish, the fish is purple.
Mm.
So it's just sort of scattered throughout the force, and but still works with the orange and the blue being
Yeah.
the two big main ones.
Yeah. Okay. So going kind of leaning back on that kind of quadratic idea that you mentioned earlier with the different colors. So primarily, like with your color choices, like using that and this army as an example, do you often go with kind of a really hot color, or a really warm color, and then a really cool color, or does kind of I'm just trying to understand where the choices of the colors can lead to kind of a better result for people who are really wanting their armies to really be visible and just pop on the table.
Yeah, so I think having the two, the warm and the cool, or a very bright and then the contrasting color or the offset color being really dark, makes it pop on the table. And I think if someone's wanting to get painting nominations and things like that, you've got to grab people's attention, especially if it's a player voted painting award, which the ones at the Gauntlet are. People wander around at lunchtime and that, or just after lunch, and they have a look at the armies that they'd like, and then they vote on them. So you've got to grab people's attention. So having that contrast in the paint scheme and picking a bright color grabs people's attention and makes them come and have a look at your army. Um, if you're looking for like judge awarded painting awards, they tend to be a bit more technical. So color choice matters. Like this, you still need that contrast in the army, I think. But it's more about technique at that point. But yeah,
Yeah, yeah, okay. One other thing that I know, just because I know you and we're friends, even outside of the hobby, is you were really focused on this army being a big push for you to do to really level up your basing as well. So you
Hmm.
did like a dark swamp base. How do you think that impacted your color choice and kind of how you envisioned the entire army and all the models coming together?
Yeah, so pretty much the first thing that happened was I went, as I sort of said before, I want forest goblins and I want the Minna Swamp. So I had a look at some swamp tutorials and had a look at the basing, and obviously, dark greens and dark browns and things like that for swamps, and lots of tufts and textures and things like that. So that meant that the you couldn't get away with painting the rest of the army. Oh, you couldn't get away with painting the rest of the army in dark greens and browns, and I think have it look like it pops. Um, I know that you could. Some people paint their armies so that it's a fairly monochromatic scheme, so that it'll be
Mm.
sort of and greens and browns, and then greens and browns on the bases. But I don't think it grabs the eye as well, and that's kind of because as far as technical skill goes, I'm a fairly average painter. When it comes down, my brush control isn't amazing, so I'll never be a golden demon painter and things like that. So I have to rely on that visual pop, that attention grabbing. So that's why we went from the dark greens on the base to the bright colors on top.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
I
okay.
think that answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, in a roundabout way. I do
Yeah,
just want to
sorry.
dispute. I do just want to dispute your that you don't believe you're a good technical painter, because I know for a fact that you walked away with a highly commended from the Mortally Wounded, the Mortal Blade painting contest. So don't believe him when he says that. And I know he's won a lot of Best Painted awards, and that's the other reason why I got him on to talk about kind of getting the Best Painted awards and what are some tips and tricks that rather than like we could sit here and say, oh, you need to do non-metallic metal or object source lighting or do this or this or this. A lot of those come down to skill. Like I personally, the last I think 3 times I've tried to do OSL, like the lighting, it looks like they've just spilt. I've been painting lightsabers. It looks like they spilt a slushy on them. It does not look good in the slightest, so I've just immediately painted over it. But that is a technical thing. That's something that I need to work on in terms of how I paint and the brush control. Um, Whereas I think a lot of Clint's ability and skill to do well in these Best Painted awards is does come down to knowing picking the right models with the right colors. So
Okay. That wasn't really a question, but then you stopped. So I'm
yeah.
like, okay, I clearly have to answer this somehow. Um,
Well,
yeah.
the question would be like looking at this army and looking at some of your previous armies. Are there any kind of overarching themes or factors that you try and bring to the armies that, in your opinion, have done better for the painting nominations at events?
Um, as I've sort of said before, the bright colors, the stuff that tends to do really well. So obviously the spiders on the weekend. I had a Soulblight army that was sort of blue and red, but used the Necron Glow paint for anything ghostly. And I think that won an award at Gauntlet. I think the
I
first year
think in
of
the first
Gauntlets.
year, yep.
Yeah, because I didn't play in last year's series. I was sort of having my AOS hiatus at that point. So, once again, the bright colors. In terms of army construction, I think it's really important to have a variety of models. And obviously, some armies or some factions benefit from that a lot more than others. Like, it's really hard. If you were to say to me, Clint, I want you to paint a Fire Slayers army that's going to get a nomination, not necessarily win, but going to get a nomination, that I will find really tough because there's two sizes of model. There's the little dudes or the big Magradros. And
Mm.
there's sort of nothing really in between that you can break the army silhouette up with. They're also hard to do kit bashes and things on. That's something else that I kind of try and make the models in the army mine.
Yep.
And I'm not necessarily the world's best converter or kit basher or whatever. I try and find stuff that clips together almost to get to the models. So um, and I think just having those individual models that people go, oh, is that? Oh no, that's not the stock model. Sort of you
Mm.
bright colors to grab them from across the room, and then as they come over, they go, oh, okay, that's not a normal model. You know, they
Mm.
go and they have a look. So my Scragrot was part web spinner shaman off the big Arachnarok, part um, one of the guy from the Gobapalooza that's on the back of like the brain mushroom, and he's
Yep.
being attacked by a flying mushroom himself or something like that. I don't remember exactly what, because they've all got crazy names.
Mm.
So I've got like the brain mushroom, and then the web spinner shaman, and then another staff on there as well. So he's got Scragrot's moon staff and things like that. So it's a bunch of different kits that all sort of went together with minimal green stuff. But when people come over, they go, "Oh, that's not a normal model," and then they go down and they have a look, and that means that you've grabbed them and they're looking at your army a lot more, and then they'll see the more subtle stuff. And some of it's just for me. I'm sure a lot of people had no idea that every spider on that table had legs repositioned. So
That's a lot of
basically,
legs as well.
it is a lot of legs. So basically, at least two legs per spider were repositioned. Most of the time, it's four.
Damn.
So either cut and bent to be different angles, and so they're pointing down or pointing up, or because it's like the older models.
Mm.
And when I unpacked them, they all looked the same. They all have the same silhouette,
Mm.
basically. So I got in building. I think building the spiders took longer than painting the whole army, just in terms of but also from a boredom factor as well, because
Mm.
it's just okay. What am I going to do this evening? Oh, it's Ben's spider legs again. Awesome. I best put on a good movie and
Yep.
go from there. So, but yeah, so I think different sizes of models make a big choice, and then trying to make them yours. And I know that some people don't enjoy kit bashing, or that's not where their skill lies. They might be really good at the painting aspect, but not so much the assembly. Um, but even uh, I was sort of saying that Michael's Stormcast army earlier, he
Mm.
had a bunch of different helmets on, but his Paladors had also been converted so that instead of like with the hand axes, they actually had big two-handed hammers.
Mm.
And so I basically looked over and went, oh, okay, you know. Um,
Mm.
and just on the table, I was instantly looking at these models closer,
Mm.
and looking at the army closer. It's like, oh well, if they've done that, what else have they done?
Yeah.
I think that's a big having a draw card to keep people looking at your army is good for votes
Yeah. Okay.
if
No.
that's what you're chasing.
Yeah. No. Very cool. Very very informative. Like definitely giving me some ideas for some of my kind of future projects that I've got. Things that I want to try and attempt in the future. I would like one day to have the skills and have the time and the patience to do up an army that kind of like is up there in terms of best painted, and doesn't need to go to an event that allows unpainted models, and I try and win by default. Um,
You've had some you had nominations and stuff at a bunch of events with your Seraphon.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
A few of them were those ones that allowed unpainted models, and
Okay.
one
Right.
of one of
Okay.
the ones I won, I believe I was the only fully painted army there, but I still won it, so I'll take that. Um, but yeah, one other thing that you mentioned, and is definitely probably in some people's minds, is that you had a bit of a hiatus from Age of Sigmar in third edition. Um,
Mm.
and recently, or not that recently, at the start of the year, you announced that you were stepping down from running Call to Glory. And
That was last year now.
last year, oh yes, last year, man,
Yes. Yeah.
that's how long you've been out of it.
Mm.
And now you're back playing in events and painting new armies. So I know more than one person has asked you, is this your big return, or is this just a bit of a dabble? Like, give us the goss.
Okay, so yeah, it's no secret if that I wasn't overly impressed with AOS 3 in terms of being a TO and a player. Call to Glory 2023 was my last one. And that since that event's since been handed over to Capital Country Gaming, which is Jason Harris and a bunch of other folks from Canberra and around. And so I took a step back from the game totally. I basically got rid of my armies. I went and I painted up lots of Middle Earth and I went and played lots of Middle Earth events last year and had lots of fun. It's a great system. I kind of had thought that I would like to go back and play in the doubles at CanCon earlier this year. Didn't kind of work out. Family and job changes and stuff. But then I committed to going to Sydney Slaughter, which was run by Chris Welfare and James Mabry, mortally wounded. And I thought, okay, well, I'll give AOS 3 another go. And I still wasn't overly impressed. So I was still kind of on the fence. AOS 4 rolls around. I've got these squigs that I painted for third. You and I decided to have a game down at our local store. And pretty much that was it. The complaints that I had about third, which were, having to be on the ball all the time, waiting for your turn to interrupt your opponent to do a thing.
Yeah.
That sort of having to keep track of battle tactics and grand strategies and resources and all those sorts of things. Whereas with four, we had lots of interaction, but it was all structured
Mm.
and just so much, which made it then easier for somebody like myself who I don't play competitively. I don't play a lot. It makes it easier for me to remember. Okay, cool. It's the end of your hero phase. I get to do stuff now.
Mm.
The end of the movement phase, and I get to redeploy. I don't have to try and interrupt you while you're having your turn
Mm.
to do something that I need to. Let alone I have to remember that first.
Mm.
Um, Oftentimes my opponents would say, "Are you sure you don't want to redeploy?" Which meant that I had missed something. Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to get screwed in this next little bit because I've missed that I could move something away or
Yep.
whatever. So, and we played that game of fourth. I think I played another one, and then came to the first Gauntlet event, and then since then the hobby forges have been firing.
Mm.
My Google Doc full of army ideas, where I just go, okay, cool. What about you know um, swamp gits, or what about Skaven, but they're from the jungle, so all of their machines are mounted on the back of dinosaurs, which is like an idea I've kicked around for ages. I'm like,
Mm.
well, I might actually do it this edition, but I'm sure somebody else out there is already doing it. I think I saw it on Twitter, and I went, oh well, they got there first. That's
Yep.
fine. But there's still other ideas in my doc that I won't go into now because they may turn up. You never know when they'll turn up,
Yep.
or what color they'll be painted in.
Yep. It
Probably pink.
it will be a bright. There will be a bright one and a very cool one.
Yeah, I'd like to. Yeah, I'd like to mess around with oils at some point and just do some other
Yeah.
stuff. But I also kind of like getting painting noms, so maybe that won't happen. But yeah, just the fact that I'd be at work at my desk and doing stuff, and I'd go, Bing, I'd have a hobby idea.
Mm.
Oh, cool. I have to get that into the Google Doc before I forget it. That didn't happen in third.
Mm.
I sort of painted squigs for third because I like painting squigs.
Mm.
There was minimal sort of inspiration in that it was going to be a doubles army with myself and Travis, my Herald's co-host, um, and we decided that it would be like a ruined dwarf hold. Cool.
Mm.
So that was as much theme as it was. Bits of dwarf ruins on the basing. That was pretty much it. Um, so whereas obviously with fourth, we're only what 3-4 months in.
Mm.
I've completed an army doing stuff that I hadn't done before. I've got other stuff on the back burner just waiting. Um, it's yeah, it's definitely got me,
Yep.
and I obviously bought a ticket to CanCon next year for the singles, and have been roped into TOing the doubles as well, which is probably why people are going, "Are you back?"
Yep.
You're like, "Oh, you're back now."
You've stepped one foot back into the pool, and it's not letting go again. So,
No, absolutely not, and it won't, I don't believe, lead to running any more events. I'm doing it as a favor to Jason and the boys, so that they can concentrate on the championships. But and
we'll
plus
see.
doubles is fun. No,
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. Yeah.
certainly won't be CanCon again. That's for sure.
No, just casually just run the biggest event in Australia or the Southern Hemisphere as your entry back into the system. So,
Yeah, no, that gives me shivers, unfortunately, and not the good kind.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight and chatting with me. It's been great. Before we wrap up, is there anyone that you would like to shout out or call out?
Yeah, so obviously, uh, everyone that I played on the weekend, it was awesome. And everyone that I caught up with again who I hadn't seen in a while, there were a few people there. Shout out to Travis, my Heralds of War co-host. He probably won't watch because, unfortunately, while AOS 4 has grabbed me, it hasn't him. So hopefully, he might get the bargain. We'll do some stuff again. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much it
Well,
today.
awesome. Yeah, so thank you again for coming on tonight. For everyone watching, the next gauntlet is sold out, but the waitlist is quite small. So if you are keen to get to one of these events, definitely shoot a message through to either our email or on our Facebook page. The next event is at T3 down at Burleigh on the 10th of November. It's awesome venue. Great atmosphere, great group of people already bought tickets, so you can be insured of some fantastic games. So definitely add that to your calendar if you're interested. Otherwise, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on this video. I've got to keep remembering to say that and actually trying to get people to do it, like all other YouTubers out there. But thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.